only need to master four things: your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. Seneca understood this at the end of his life, when Nero ordered his death. Everything could be taken from him: his wealth, his power, his reputation, even his life. But there was one thing Rome could never take from him: his character. And today, I'm going to show you the 4M Stoic Framework that can help you stop leaking your power and start mastering yourself. Because when you master these four things, you become very difficult to control. In the final chapter of Seneca's life, the Roman Emperor Nero turned against the very man who had guided him since youth. Seneca had been his advisor, his teacher, his stabilizing force. And when the order came for him to die, he did not beg. He did not rage. He did not collapse into fear. He accepted the sentence, turned to those around him, and left behind a final lesson more powerful than any speech he had ever given. The only thing a man truly owns is the example of his life. Think about that. Seneca had wealth. He had status. He had political influence. He had survived exile, betrayal, and the chaos of one of Rome's most unstable rulers. But at the moment everything external was stripped away, he did not point to his fortune, his titles, or his reputation. He pointed to his character. And that is why this matters to you right now. Most people spend their lives trying to control what was never theirs to control in the first place. Other people's opinions, economic uncertainty, a boss's approval, traffic, the past, an ex moving on, the moods of strangers, the timing of life itself. And while chasing all of that, they neglect the few things that are actually theirs. The few things that, once mastered, make every external problem smaller, every opportunity clearer, and every day more powerful than the last. Your mouth, your mood, your money, your mind. The Stoics called this the discipline of control. We can call it something simpler, the 4M framework. And what I want to give you today is not motivation. Motivation is cheap. It burns hot and disappears fast. What I want to give you is something deeper, a philosophy sharp enough to cut through confusion. A framework precise enough to expose exactly where your power is leaking. A way of seeing your daily life that changes how you speak, how you feel, how you spend, and how you think. By the end of this, you will not look at your life the same way. So let's begin. First M. Master your mouth, the weapon you carry in your face. In ancient Greece, there was a brilliant statesman and general named Themistocles. He helped save Greek civilization from destruction. He outmaneuvered the Persian Empire. He defeated one of the greatest naval forces the world had ever seen. He had intelligence. He had vision. He had courage. And yet in the end, he was not undone by foreign enemies. He was undone by his own mouth. After victory, he could not stop reminding people of his greatness. He turned achievement into self-display. He turned influence into arrogance. And little by little, he converted allies into enemies until the city he helped save cast him out. The Stoics paid close attention to men like that, because they understood something most people miss. The mouth is never just a tool of communication. It is a broadcast system for your inner world. When you are ruled by ego, your words reveal it. When you are ruled by anger, your tone reveals it. When you are ruled by insecurity, even your explanations reveal it. Most people do not realize how much of themselves they expose every time they speak impulsively. Think about the last time you said something and immediately wished you could take it back. That sting you felt afterward was not just embarrassment. It was evidence. Evidence that your words outran your wisdom. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more than we speak. But he was not offering a social tip. He was describing a law of power. The one who speaks less often sees more. The one who rushes to talk usually reveals more than they intend. The one who knows how to wait gathers information while protecting their position. In rooms full of ambitious people, words are often spent too cheaply. History is full of men who lost influence not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked restraint. Silence, when chosen deliberately, is not passivity. It is positioning. It is refusing to turn your mouth into an emotional exhaust pipe. But this goes deeper than what you say to other people. Because the most dangerous conversation you have every day is the one inside your own head. The Stoics understood that language shapes reality from the inside out. The story you repeat to yourself becomes the world you start inhabiting. If your inner voice keeps saying, "I always fail," then your mind begins scanning reality for proof. If it says, "Nothing ever works out for me," your attention becomes biased toward disappointment. If it says, "This setback is the end," then your imagination starts building a prison around a temporary event. You are not merely describing your life. You are scripting it. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, lost everything in a shipwreck. His business, his cargo, his plans, all gone. And yet he did not turn that loss into a story of ruin. He turned it into a beginning. That decision mattered. Because the words you choose in crisis determine whether pain becomes identity or instruction. So here is the practice. Before any important conversation, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it better than silence? If your words fail those tests, do not release them. Hold them, refine them, process them in private if needed. Then speak from judgment, not impulse. Do that consistently, and people will start experiencing you differently. You will seem calmer, clearer, more precise, more grounded. Because people who speak with control seem like people who understand something deeper. And usually, they do. Second M. Master your mood. The empire between your ears. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the greatest empires in human history. Millions of lives fell under his authority. He commanded armies. He governed through war, plague, political pressure, and personal grief. And yet one of the most important things he did each day was not public at all. He wrote privately. He examined his own mind. He studied his frustrations. He looked directly at his anger, fatigue, disappointment, and grief. Why? Because he understood that the true war was not always out there. Often, it was within. This is the truth most people resist. Your emotional state does not merely react to your life. It helps create the life you experience. 2 people can endure the same event and walk away with completely different futures. The same loss, the same rejection, the same setback. One person turns it into fuel, the other turns it into identity. The difference is not just circumstance, it is emotional governance. The Stoics believe that while you cannot always control what happens, you can govern how you interpret it. And that interpretation is where mood begins. Not every emotion is a truth. Not every feeling is a command. Not every first interpretation deserves to be believed. This is where most people lose themselves. Something happens, and their mind rushes to explain it. A boss does not acknowledge them, and the mind says, "I am not valued." A text goes unanswered, and the mind says, "I am being rejected." A setback appears, and the mind says, "This is proof I am falling behind." But the raw fact is often much smaller than the emotional story built on top of it. The raw fact might simply be this: no reply yet. No comment made. No result today. Everything else is interpretation. And interpretation, once repeated enough, becomes mood. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again that the mind has power over itself. But that power only becomes real through practice, not through agreeing with wise quotes, not through nodding at philosophy, through actual repetition in ordinary life. So here is a Stoic practice worth taking seriously. At the end of each day, review your emotional responses. Ask yourself, where did I lose command of myself? What triggered me? What did I assume without examining it? What story did I tell myself that may not have been true? How could I have met that moment with more reason and less reflex? This is not about self-criticism. It is about refinement. The Stoics did not believe emotions were enemies. They believed emotions were signals. Anger tells you something feels violated. Fear tells you something feels threatened. Grief tells you something mattered. But feelings are information, not instructions. Master your mood, and you stop letting every passing feeling become a decision maker. You become the kind of person whose calm changes the environment. The kind of person who does not just survive tension, but stabilizes it. Because the one who remains steady while others panic becomes a source of gravity, and gravity changes rooms. Third M. Master your money. The most honest mirror you own there was a financial crisis in ancient Rome that shattered fortunes almost overnight. Systems collapsed. Credit froze. Wealth vanished. Men who seemed secure discovered how fragile their security really was. Seneca watched all of this closely, and what he concluded was not that wealth was evil or that money did not matter. His insight was sharper than that. He saw that many people were not poor because they lacked money. They were poor because they lacked inner sufficiency, because craving had made them dependent. That is still true now. Most money problems are not just math problems. They are identity problems. Every purchase tells a story. Every financial habit reveals a belief. Every act of overspending can be a form of emotional confession. When you buy what you do not need, with money you should not spend, to signal something to people who were not thinking about you in the first place, you are not just making a purchase. You are revealing an unmet need. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort for this very reason. Seneca would sometimes live with less on purpose. Eat simply. Dress plainly. Sleep without luxury. Not because he was performing humility, because he wanted to test his fear. He wanted to know whether the condition he dreaded was actually unbearable. And every time he discovered the same thing, what he feared was usually worse in imagination than in reality. That discovery matters. Because once you know you can survive less, you stop making desperate decisions to avoid it. You stop needing luxury to feel safe. You stop using money to silence insecurity. You stop letting consumption pretend to be confidence. The deepest financial freedom is not having everything. It is not being owned by what you have. The Stoics admired people who could use wealth without becoming dependent on it. That is the difference. Money is a tool, a useful one, sometimes a powerful one, but the moment it becomes the thing you depend on for identity, status, or inner stability, it stops serving you and starts governing you. So before any major purchase, ask a better question. Not just, can I afford this? Ask, what am I really trying to buy? Am I trying to buy relief? Am I trying to buy admiration? Am I trying to buy proof that I matter? Am I trying to buy a feeling I have not learned how to build honestly? That question reveals more than any budget spreadsheet ever will. Because if what you are actually seeking is self-respect, peace, significance, or confidence, no object can deliver those things for long. You might get a brief hit of excitement. Then, the baseline returns. And now you need another purchase to repeat the illusion. That cycle never ends until awareness interrupts it. So spend 30 days observing the emotional why behind your financial decisions. Not just the amount, the motive. If you do that honestly, your relationship with money will begin to change. Because the real issue is rarely the money itself. The real issue is whether money is helping you build a life or helping you hide from one. Fourth M. Master your mind, the garden that grows everything else. Your mind is not passive. It is not a neutral recording device that simply takes in reality as it is. It is a meaning-making machine. It interprets. It predicts. It compares. It exaggerates. It fears. It remembers. It invents futures. It rewrites the past. And if you do not govern that process, it will govern you. Epictetus said that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by their opinions about those events. That insight sits at the center of Stoic psychology. and it remains just as powerful now. The problem is often not the thing. It is the thought attached to the thing. A setback happens. Then comes the thought. This means I am finished. A criticism comes. Then comes the thought. This proves I am not enough. A silence appears. Then comes the thought. I am being abandoned. The event arrives first. Then the mind rushes in and assigns meaning. Most people never question that meaning. They simply live inside it. The Stoics trained themselves to do something else, to observe thought before obeying it. They practiced watchfulness, a steady awareness of the mind's habits, not to suppress thought, not to eliminate emotion, but to see clearly what was happening internally. Because the moment you can observe your thoughts, you are no longer fully trapped inside them. That pause changes everything. It is the difference between thought and identity, between fear and fact, between impulse and wisdom. Picture yourself awake late at night, lying in bed while your mind starts projecting disaster. Everything goes wrong. The future collapses. Loss multiplies. Your life shrinks into worst-case scenarios. What is happening there? Not prophecy. Activity. The mind is producing interpretations. The Stoic move is not to panic at that. It is to witness it, to say, I see this thought. I do not have to turn it into reality. If it requires action, I will take action tomorrow. If it does not, I will not keep feeding it tonight. That is mental mastery. Not control over whether thoughts arise, control over whether they become rulers. Marcus Aurelius wrote that life becomes what our thoughts make it. He was not being poetic. He was being exact. Because the thoughts you rehearse shape the choices you make. The choices shape your actions. The actions shape your character. And character, over time, shapes destiny. You are thinking yourself into a future every day. The only question is whether you are doing it consciously. The Stoics believed each person has a ruling faculty, the inner commander, that decides which thoughts to trust, which values to follow, and which interpretations deserve power. That commander must be trained. Because if you do not examine your thoughts, your mind will fill with inherited fears, borrowed insecurities, social comparison, and low-grade anxiety from a world that profits from your distraction. And then those forces will begin to think through you. That is not freedom, that is captivity disguised as normal life. So learn your thought patterns. Name them, question them, test them, ask whether they are true, ask whether they are useful, ask whether they align with the person you are trying to become. Then choose. Deliberately. Because an ungoverned mind can turn even a good life into a prison. And a governed mind can turn even hardship into material for growth. The integration, what the 4M framework really means, bring it all together. A man can control his speech but lose his mood. He can control his mood but stay ruled by money. He can control money but live inside chaos of thought. True strength is integration. When these 4 areas begin working together, life changes from the inside out. If you control your mouth, you stop leaking energy through careless speech. If you control your mood, you stop turning every event into an emotional emergency. If you control your money, you stop trying to purchase what must be built within. If you control your mind, you stop letting thought patterns decide your future for you. And once those 4 begin aligning, they reinforce each other. Better speech creates less regret. Less regret creates more emotional steadiness. More emotional steadiness produces wiser financial choices. Wiser financial choices reduce fear. Less fear creates more clarity of mind. And a clearer mind speaks, feels, spends, and lives better. This is not 4 isolated skills. It is one way of being. A coherent inner architecture. A life no longer built around chasing the uncontrollable, but around governing what is yours. That is the Stoic life. Not a cold life. Not a perfect life. Not a life without loss, tension, failure, or uncertainty. A governed life. A deliberate life. A life in which your energy is no longer wasted fighting reality, but invested in shaping character. And character is the one thing that remains when everything else can be taken. Final closing there is a reason Stoicism has endured for over 2,000 years. Not because it is fashionable, not because it sounds good in quotes, not because ancient people were less complicated than we are. It has endured because human nature has not changed. We still struggle with impulse. We still chase approval. We still fear loss. We still speak too quickly, feel too wildly, spend too blindly, and think too carelessly. And the answer is still the same: master yourself. Not once. Daily, not dramatically. Deliberately, every conversation is training. Every emotional trigger is training. Every financial choice is training. Every thought you interrupt before it becomes identity is training. The obstacle is not proof that you are failing. It is the material. It is the stone under the sculptor's hand. You are both the stone and the sculptor. Every day you are shaping something. The question is whether you are doing it consciously. So start now. Guard your mouth, steady your mood, clarify your money, govern your mind. Because the person who masters these four does not merely become more productive or more impressive. They become free. And that changes everything.